to another episode of New England Beer Buddies. Today we kind of want to change gears a little bit and talk a little bit about kind of getting to know us and our beer tastes. So we figured we would talk a little bit about our beer journey, if you want to call it that, kind of where we started and kind of, you know, where we got into beer at all, how we got into craft beer eventually, kind of all that type of stuff. So either, I don't know if you want to go first or if I should, up to you.
Oh yeah, I'll go. So essentially, you know, like a lot of us, I started, you know, first getting into beer, interested in it during college, but, you know, I was mostly drinking, you know, whatever I could find. Wasn't actually really a huge fan of it. I did eventually start, you know, looking at trying to find something, you know, that I actually liked to drink as opposed to just, you know, what was ever available. I probably remember one of the first beers I really probably actually started enjoying was the Shipyard Pumpkinhead Ale. That was probably the first beer that I would consistently go out and get. And then afterwards, you know, I sort of stalled out at that. And then maybe a couple years later, after college and stuff, I actually started getting into more different types of beer because I would keep going to different bars and stuff to watch Red Sox games. So they didn't have cable at my house, so I would go there. You know, I was of age, and I was like, you know, I'm gonna, you know, since I'm here, you know, I might as well try a couple of different beers. And you know, I was mostly into like more easy drinking type of things. I remember probably the first brewery like I really liked, would like go out of the way to get stuff by was Jack's Abbey. And I still really like them to this day. They're
Great choice.
Yes. And, you know, so I still was kind of not like super, it was just kind of like, I liked drinking beer and I knew I didn't really like, you know, sort of the macro lagers, like, you know, the Budweiser and stuff like that. But other than that, I really didn't know a ton about craft beer. But then eventually I got a job where I would you know, spend a lot of time after work with coworkers at local breweries, particularly Medusa Brewing in Hudson, Mass. And you know, we'd go there for trivia every Wednesday. And just, you know, Medusa, they have such, you know, a wide variety of beers, and you would go and you would try a different one each time. And, you know, from there I sort of started getting into like IPAs and pretty much every type of, you know, style. You know, they have Belgian styles, they would have porters, they would have stouts. And from there, like, you know, I started going to all different breweries, and I found like a really good craft beer store that I would go to quite a bit. The craft beer cellar in Westford, Mass. I think we've mentioned them before on the program. Mm-hmm. And, you know, from there it was like, you know, kind of how I am today, where I drink pretty much anything. I mean, I would say probably my favorite styles are IPAs and porters and stouts, but to be honest, like I drink really everything, and it's really, honestly, like I feel like even saying I have a favorite style is probably not really an accurate sort of thing. Maybe technically I drink the type of beer I drink the most is IPAs, but it's just by a small margin, and I really love all styles, except for sours. Not a big sour fan.
Yeah, me neither.
But yeah, that's pretty much you know, kind of how I started and got into it. You know, it was definitely something where it was a lot of, you know, getting recommended stuff by friends, and you know, stuff like that also helped. And
yeah, that was a big part of it for me as well. So kind of a similar beginning, I guess. You know, drinking, starting in college, of course, it's when it becomes pretty popular. Just like most people, I think. I started with, you know, the what you could get your hands on, but, you know, the macros, right? You know, the Budweisers and Millers and such of the world. And, you know, it kind of stayed that way for a little while. Didn't really know any better. Eventually, of course, I, you know, was buying my own, you know, going out and actually buying my own beer and things. You know, being in the Boston area, Sam Adams and Harpoon are pretty common names. I think those are probably some of the first, you know, decent beers that I probably tried. And then I had some friends of mine as well who one of them worked at Wachusett, so I drank a lot of, not a lot of, but I drank Wachusett Blueberry for a bit. I'm not really a huge fan of fruit in beers for the most part, so that fell off pretty quickly, but that was kind of an exposure to a different kind of beer, I guess. Another friend of mine was a big fan of Rogue, so I had some of that, and that was kind of, that next year, so to speak. So I got my introduction there. Obviously, not local, not New England with that second one, but and then, like you said, the Shipyard Pumpkinhead, I think you mentioned, was really, really popular. I mean, there seems to have been this huge pumpkin trend in the last handful of years in terms of pumpkin flavored everything, but it's definitely a great beer. So I kind of got into that. So I guess from those fairly typical but good beers, from there, I think after that, I kind of started to get more into IPAs. A lot of that was West Coast IPAs, and I'm actually not a huge IPA guy nowadays. I think I kind of overdid them a little bit. One of the things I really didn't love about them was just that mouth drying thing. And when you're in your mid-20s, I guess I probably drank a few more beers back then than I do now. So I kind of went all in on IPAs. They're great. They're a good style, and I just kind of, I don't know, I got sick of them eventually. I do drink them now as well. I'm kind of starting to get back into those a little more. They're still not higher on my rotation. Usually I tend more towards stouts and porters, brown ales, ambers, kind of things like that. Less of the overly hoppy stuff. But I have been getting back into IPAs a bit. So I guess that's kind of how I got there. Again, it's an exposure through friends, and to be honest, I don't know how they got there. That was interesting to me. It's like, obviously everyone has their different hobbies, but it was kind of odd to me, like this one guy, drank Rogue, and like everyone else, just kind of got whatever was, affordable enough at the package store or whatever at the time, which was, salmon harpoon and stuff like that. So it's interesting. I don't know how we got into it, but I'm glad that he exposed me to that for sure. So yeah, it's kind of where I'm at now. I guess a lot of your story about going out to breweries is similar to me as well. I think that's been a huge, just overall trend, I think, with a lot more of these local breweries opening up. I'd say most of that and my real exposure to, a lot more of the local side definitely came when I moved up to New Hampshire. That was several years ago. But there, within a fairly small area, there were a handful of very good breweries. 603 and others, but 603 being a big one. Kelson, of course, we've talked about them plenty. And then a really small one that I'd like to mention, actually, which is Border Brewery in Salem, New Hampshire. They do barbecue on the weekends. It's a great spot, and they do cans to go. You won't really find them in stores, but they do some cool stuff. So I guess that's kind of where I got to then. You just kind of end up going out to trivia nights and to different events, and people invite you places, and that really exposed me more than I'd say you. I'm not a sports guy, so you go in to watch a Red Sox game and then trying some other things. That really wasn't my experience. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got to this point as well. And then as far as interested in beer as a topic. I'm not really sure when that started, but people would get me books once in a while, like family members for gifts and stuff like that. Knowing that I like these slightly better, slightly better beers, maybe beers that were foreign to some of them, but that's fine. But yeah, and I'd get a gift, I'd read it, and it was just interesting to me, so I kept with it. So hopefully that gives you, I guess, a little bit about where we came from, how we got to this thing with ourselves, and why we're doing this channel. And I'm sure you've all had some similar journeys and stories, but if you want to chime in as to an unusual way you got into beer, or a style that you particularly like, feel free to do that. I'll comment, subscribe, put it down below, all that good stuff. And we'll be back to you with hopefully a couple more episodes like this that are just kind of about our overall impressions and tastes and preferences. So thanks for watching, and as we always like to say, drink good beer.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.